Have you ever noticed something unusual about the Ghanaian communities? And what I mean is that no matter where you find yourself, it could be in a big city like Accra or even a small town or a village, there is always this one building that you are almost going to find. And if you guessed a church, then you are correct. Sometimes it is even the biggest, building in that area. Sometimes this church is usually the landmark that everyone uses, for location. They're going to be telling you, meet me at so church. Or if you turn to this place, you're going to see this big church, okay? Now, everybody seems to know that church in that location. But then again, have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Why did the churches in Ghana become something that I would say that is central to the Ghanaian communities? Why is it that every church, it's not only a place that people go and worship, but it is also a place where people go to learn, people go to, connect, people go to celebrate, people go to mourn, and let's not forget that people go there to, build relationships. Now, I want you to know that the answer goes much deeper than, going to church every Sunday. Many people actually think that the reason is this simple. Ghanaians are very religious. Now, let's not take away the fact that religion is a big part of the Ghanaian culture, but that alone does not answer, the question. It doesn't get to explain it fully. Now, the reason why I say this is that churches in Ghana have, they have historically played roles that go far beyond religion, excuse me. Now, in many communities, churches became some of the first organized institutions that people could, easily depend on, so that before many communities had modern facilities, before the government, services were provided nearby, the church had always been there. And, that kind of changed, everything. Now, for us to understand this, we need to look back at Ghana's history. You understand what I'm saying? We need to take our steps, backwards. And this is because when the Christian missionaries came, you know, to what was the then Gold Coast, they did not only build, you know, place of worship, they established schools and other social institutions so that education became one of the biggest ways that churches were able to influence the communities. Now, for many families, the first opportunity for what I would call formal education came through the mission schools that were actually connected to the churches. Now, what this meant was that the church was not just something that was separate from everyday life. Rather, it was, kind of connected to children's education. It was connected to learning. It was connected to the future, of the families. Imagine growing up in a community where the same institution that gets to teach your children is also where people gather for important events. Naturally, what is going to happen is that that institution is going to become something that is part of, everyday life. It becomes a trusted institution. It becomes part of the identity of the community. Back to what I'm talking about, trust. But the influence of the church did not only just stop at education. Church buildings often became, you know, a meeting point. It became a meeting space where people, or the communities, if they needed to gather together, it was the church premises that they would go and hold their meetings. They would have their discussions. You will see youth activities. It was where celebrations were taking place. It was where support meetings or important announcements were made. The church became, a gathering point. Now think about it. Before community centers, became common, many social centers like the church existed. And for many people, that or many communities, that place was the church. Now, another reason why the churches actually became a very powerful community center is because the churches also created something very important: relationships. You get it? What I mean is that in many Ghanaian communities, church is where people meet outside their immediate, family members. That is where they go and meet other people. It's a place where friendship begins, where the young people have the opportunity to connect, where families get to build support system, where people get to find encouragement during difficult seasons of their life. Now, a person may move to a new area and definitely not know everyone, okay? But when they get to join a church, they can immediately be introduced to a new, to a network of people. They'll be introduced to people who can render help, people who can advise them when needed, people who can support them in situations. Now the church becomes more than a location. It becomes a community within the community. And here is something very interesting. Have you ever noticed that many businesses operate around churches? When I say businesses, I'm talking about food sellers, I'm talking about clothing shops, I'm talking about printing businesses, transport services, small shops. The list is endless. But this is not accidental. And this is because where people gather consistently, economic activities naturally follow. A church can bring hundreds or even thousands of people together regularly. And wherever there are a lot of people, there are opportunities. So, what happens is that over time, churches became the anchor around which communities developed. Today, Ghana has grown more than what it used to be in the yesteryears. There are modern schools, hospitals, shopping centers, or even community facilities. You get it. But the churches, they still hold that special position. And this is because churches are not just only buildings, okay? They represent the history, they represent relationships, they represent a place where people kind of feel connected. For many Ghanaians, church is where important life moments take place. Birthdays are celebrated, or yes, birthdays are celebrated, marriages are blessed, loved ones get to be remembered, and you see different communities coming together in churches. So the next time you drive through a Ghanaian community, you get to see a church, that is standing proudly, sorry, at the center. I want you to look beyond the building. I want you to look beyond that building because that church may represent decades of history. It may represent education, support, friendship, and of course, it represents the story of how communities were built over time. The reason churches became central in Ghana is not just because people get to attend them, it is because for generations they helped create the communities around them. So, before I go, I have a question for you. Do you know the history of your church in Ghana, the particular church you attend in Ghana? And what is the impact of your church in the community where it is located? Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. One thing that gets to, surprise many visitors or foreigners when they come to Ghana is that almost everywhere you go, you are definitely going to see a church. If you drive through a neighborhood in Accra, if you walk through a small town, if you go to a busy roadside area, there is the possibility that you are going to see churches everywhere. Sometimes you can even find quite a number of churches on a particular street. And when you get to see all of this, you're asking so many questions. Why are there so many churches in Ghana? Is it because Ghanaians are more religious than everyone else? Are they more religious? Is there something that is happening that you are not aware? And this is because the story behind Ghana's churches, is much deeper than what gets to appear on the surface that you are seeing. At first glance, it may look like there are so many, churches. But when you get to understand Ghana's history, its population, its growth, its culture, and even the community structure, all of this can begin to make sense for you. The number of churches you see today is the result of many different things that came together over so many years. You know what I'm saying? So many things happened so many years ago, and the result is the churches that we are seeing today. Now, one of the biggest reasons is Ghana's long relationship with Christianity. Christian missionaries, or should I say Christian missions actually became established in many parts of the country. And what this, did was to introduce many churches alongside schools and other, institutions. And over generations, Christianity became deeply connected with family life, education, celebration, and of course, community activities. For many families, attending church just became part of their identity. Children grew up attending churches, parents attended, even the grandparents were not left out. So, naturally, as communities expanded, churches also expanded. But there is something else that is, an interesting reason, okay? Not every church you get to see in Ghana serves people the exact way, okay? Different churches with different, purpose or what is the best way to use. But over time, different churches have developed, okay? Some focus heavily on prayers, some focus on teaching, some focus on the youth, some focus on family life. You know, some have specific approaches towards what worship, you get it? All this means that people get to choose churches that are based on what connects with them personally. So instead of one church serving everyone, many different churches grow side by side, different needs that are tailored to the individual or the family's need. But here is something that many people get to notice. A new neighborhood begins, developing, and it won't be long. Churches are going to start appearing. You get it? Now the question is why? Because churches usually follow where people go to. When more families move to an area, there is need for local worship spaces, okay? Many people prefer attending somewhere that is close to where they live. So what this means is that a church nearby means that there's going to be easier transportation, easier participation in activities, stronger local relationships. So as Ghana's towns expanded, churches naturally grew with them. Now, another major factor is the rise of independent churches. Independent churches that, a quarter of what we used to have back in the days, okay? Unlike the traditional denominations where churches are usually controlled through a larger, structure. Independent churches can be started by an individual pastor or even groups, okay? Now, this has allowed many new ministries to emerge. Some begin in small spaces, a rented room, a home, a temporal location. Now, if the community gets to grow, there's the likelihood that these churches are also going to expand. So, what started small can eventually become a major church. You get it? That small church, give it some few years, can become big, okay? There's also the social reason. A church is not only a place for, Sunday worship. Churches get to provide connections. People get to meet neighbors, friends, and whoever. Families get to build relationships. Young people get to join societies or activities in the church. Members get to support each other. So for someone that is moving into a new community, a church can be one of the fastest ways or places that they get to meet people. So churches also, grow not because of the faith. They grow because they get to create a sense of belonging for, the people of the location. Another thing that people really get to discuss is the activity that gets to happen around churches. When hundreds of people gather regularly, opportunities definitely, occur. They get to appear. Food vendors, are found around places where there are lots of people. Small businesses open nearby. Transportation services, increase. People sell items that are connected to the church activities. A church can become a major meeting point in a community, and wherever people gather consistently, development is definitely going to, follow suit. So the question is, why does Ghana have so many churches? I mean, so many churches. The answer to the question is just history, culture, community, population growth. And it is the way that churches have become, part of everyday life. For someone that is seeing Ghana or coming into Ghana for the first time, I know that the number of churches that you see around may look very unusual. But to many Ghanaians, churches are simply part of the landscape. They are seen as place of worship, okay, places where people can go and worship. They are also places where communities get to to connect with each other. If you've had the time, the opportunity to spend quite a number of time in Ghana, you definitely would have experienced something interesting. Churches everywhere. But the surprising thing is not only the number of churches that you are going to see, it is how much they get to, have influence on everyday life. Get it? Now, what I mean is that in many Ghanaian communities, church is not simply just a place where people go to for Sunday service or, all of those things. It is a place where people get to build friendships, where families get to celebrate important moments, where people go and find support for whatever it is that they are going through. It is a place where opportunities oftentimes, begin. And many people don't even realize how deeply connected church is to, everybody's daily life. Many people get to see church only as a place of worship. And of course, that is the primary purpose of a church if we look at it, okay? But in Ghana, churches have often become something much bigger than, a place of worship. They have become a place of social networks, community support system, places where people get to connect. You understand what I'm saying? So the question is, how did one institution become so connected to everyday life? How did the church become so connected to everyday life? You understand what I'm saying? Now, one of the biggest influences of churches in Ghana is the sense of belonging that they get to create for the individuals in question. So, what I mean is that imagine you move to a new neighborhood, you don't know anybody. You get it? You don't know anyone. You don't know who to go to for help. You don't know who to ask for help. You don't know how things operate in that area. What most people do is that they get to go and join a church because when they join a church, it creates an immediate connection for them. They get to meet people, they get to build relationships, they become part of a group. So over time, church members end up becoming like an extended family member, okay? They celebrate with you during your good times. They support you during the difficult times, of life. They check on you regularly. They encourage you. And I feel that this is one reason that churches remain so important in the society today because they create community in a world that is, that is fast becoming, modern and busy. You understand what I'm saying? Another reason that I would say churches are deeply connected to the Ghanaian life is because many major life moments, excuse me, get to happen through them. I'm talking about births, I'm talking about naming ceremonies, I'm talking about weddings. Let's not even forget funerals, Thanksgivings, celebrations. These are moments that bring families and communities together. A church is often not just the location, it becomes part of the memories that we have. People remember the place where they got married, where they, had the opportunity to celebrate a loved one's, moment where their children were, baptized, their children were named. Churches become places that are connected to people's personal stories. Now, another area where churches, have strong influence is among the young people. Many churches get to create spaces for the youth. What they do is that they get to organize, activities that, the youths can participate in. They provide mentorship, they encourage education and, of course, personal development. So, for many young people, the church becomes one of the places where they learn confidence, leadership, communication, and, of course, responsibility. Some people get to even discover their talents through church activities. I'm talking about public speaking, music, organizing events, even as far as helping others. One thing that gets to stand out about the Ghanaian communities is the importance of getting to show up for each other. You understand what I'm saying? And churches often play a major role in this. Now, when somebody is going through a difficult period, church members often provide encouragement and practical support. Like when someone is mourning, okay, when families are going through loss, the churches come together. When somebody needs help, what happens is that they get to turn to the network that they have built within the church. This support system is one of the reasons that many people remain connected to their churches even when life becomes very challenging for them. You understand what I'm saying? They remain there because they know that there's a community. Now, here is an aspect that many people really get to talk about. Churches can also create opportunities. Yes, churches create opportunities because churches get to bring people together regularly. And when they bring people together regularly, relationships are formed. So someone may meet a business contact in church. Yes, someone may hear about a job opportunity from the church. Somebody may find customers for their small businesses. Now, this is not because the church is a business center, but because communities naturally create these connections. Like I always say, where people gather in numbers, relationships grow. And these relationships often create opportunities. In some societies, different institutions handle different parts of community life. One place is for networking, another place is for social support, and another place could be for gatherings. But right here in Ghana, the community, the Ghanaian communities, churches often combine many of these roles together. The churches get to provide a place for worship, you get it, connection, support, learning, and of course, community. And I want to say that that combination is actually the thing that makes their influence so visible for everyone to notice. Okay, so the next time you pass a church in Ghana, don't just see the building, don't just take note of the building or whatever it is. I want you to see the role that the churches get to play in the community. See the relationships that are built in those churches. See the memories that are created. Get to see the community that is also connected. And this is because in many parts of Ghana, church is not just an event that people get to, attend. The church is part of the social structure that gets to, help the community function.